Howdy ESSM 406. In this video, I'm going to explain to you what you need to do to get an A on your first writing assignment, which is a policy memo that's going to be a proposal. Who are you proposing to, and what are you proposing? You are proposing to a team which you are going to be a part of. We haven't yet assigned the teams, but you will or may already have received in your email a survey which you need to fill out to join a team. The survey and the memo are both due on Friday, September 5th at 11 a.m. We will use the survey to assign you to a team of students who have similar research interests to yours. You should choose the topic of your memo and the topic that you put down as your in the survey as your area of interest carefully, based on what you're most excited and passionate about, what you want to work on, and what you want to learn more about in the policy world. Now, the proposal is to that team. You're going to be assigned to a team of people. Everyone's going to have written a proposal about a slightly different topic. Ideally, there'll be some overlap, but we don't guarantee that everyone will be the same. And you want to convince them that your topic is the most important and that you can study it. Now, what topic should you choose? You're supposed to choose a policy problem or a policy situation. What do I mean by that? Well, the readings, which I'll talk about more in another lecture, talk about what policy is. But briefly, policy is basically authoritative decision-making. Policies include laws, but we have policies that are not laws. So, someplace where society is making an authoritative decision about how resources should be used, who should be using them. It has to be about natural resources. This is a class of natural resource policy. And there should be some controversy. Maybe people want to change the policy. Maybe there's an area where there's no policy now, but people want there to be a policy. And in your proposal, you're going to tell us who are the major actors involved in the policy situation. What formal and informal policies exist that currently influence the situation? And why is this topic important? That's the meat of the proposal. In doing that, you also need to show me and show your team that there's information about this. So you're required to cite at least 5 sources of information about the policy problem. Of these, at least 3 must be from sources other than newspaper and magazine articles, and at least 1 must be from a peer-reviewed scholarly journal article. So, you can see here, this is right off the assignment sheet, and here you have the grading rubric. You'll be graded on your style. The memo should be interesting and entertaining to read. The introduction should draw the reader in. I have to read 110 of these. Make it interesting. Follow the policy memo format. I'll show you some examples in a minute. There's a lot of examples linked to or that you can download under the Resources tab. So you should have plenty of information to figure out what the format is. Your paper should be well organized. It should have a thesis statement. There should be well organized paragraphs. You need to draw me in at the beginning. You need to tell me what you're going to say, and then you need to say it. And then you need, and there's a little more detail here about what kind of sources you should be using. You need to be using the APA 6th citation style. Again, you can find details of that under Resources. You'll be evaluated on the appropriateness of your problem. It should be a contemporary natural resource policy problem, but you also need to identify it in a very specific fashion, and there should be a local component. By local, I don't mean it has to be here in College Station. By local, I mean this is a problem that affects a particular place now. So, for example, last year there was a lot of concern about drought last year, and a lot of people wrote essays about water shortages in Texas. Okay, where? Policies vary, the water sources vary. Bryan College Station didn't have a water shortage. So maybe talk about a specific aquifer or a specific city or a specific irrigation district that's experiencing a water shortage. Similarly, global climate change. It's too big. You're not going to be able to write effective policy memos on that topic. But you could write about the effect of global climate change on sea level rise in Texas. Or you could write about it on agriculture in California. It doesn't have to be Texas. I think it might be easier if it's Texas. You need to identify key actors and the key informal policies, and you need to explain why the topic is important. Now, down here, we have an example memo number 1. This is from 2013, and it is an essay that got a very good score. First of all, let's see how it starts. It starts appropriately for a policy memo. There's a subject. It's addressed to Dr. Fleischman. It said who it was from. I deleted that because you don't need to know who it was from. I would say this subject line is a little boring. I might not be convinced that this is an important email for me to open if someone sent this to me in email. I don't live in the northeastern U.S. Actually, my parents live there, so maybe I do think it's important. But what's this big word bioaccumulation? But there's a subject line there. But when I read the first sentence, I think it could be better. It says, well, this is a serious health risk to all organisms. Well, that's convincing that this might be an important thing for me to study. And it says here, I shouldn't actually have to read the whole memo, but it says here, regardless of the EPA decides to re-examine its existing regulations, recreationally caught fish at the recommendations of the FDA, continual emissions of mercury still impact human health. So here, this is telling me, this is actually the thesis statement of the paper. It's telling me what's the main point. Regardless of what happens with these policy issues, this is a human health issue. So it's telling me that this is what the memo is going to be about. And now here we have some detailed information about why it's important. 60 to 75% of the mercury in the U.S. is from man-made pollution. Then it explains this in more detail. So this is kind of a topic sentence. And then the rest of this paragraph explains where mercury is coming from, as well as who's advocating for controls on mercury. And it's short. You only get 600 words. This is actually a little over 600 words. And that's because it has good references. So you can see here we have a citation to a journal article. Here we have a citation to a newspaper article, etc. That's all. If you have any questions, you should contact me or the TAs with your questions. Thanks, and gig 'em.